right, perfect. All right, hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Plant the Spike, a Valorant podcast focused specifically on the VCT Americas region and other North American Valorant. My name is Lance, and I'm joined by my patient co-host Styx. Styx, how are you doing tonight?
Doing so good. Uh, it has been a good week, so
We love
we're
to hear that.
thriving.
There you go. We love to hear that. Patient co-host only for the reason that we still do not have any VCT Americas, obviously, because we are waiting for the Masters event to happen. But in the meantime, we still have some news to talk about here tonight. Just a quick reminder that this podcast is a call-in podcast, call-in show. So if you want to plant your take and talk about it with the Valorant community and Styx and myself, then you should jump into our Discord, which will be linked in the description below if you're watching this after the fact. If you jump into our Discord, you can go ahead and you can say your hot take in the chats. And if we like your hot take and you're with us when we record this, then you'll be able to go ahead and defend it. So, anyways, that's what we want to have happen in the future. We're only 4 episodes in, and hopefully we get some more people watching in the future. But just so that we could talk about Valorant and get nerdy about it with everybody else. In the meantime, though, we'll just kind of yap on our own and go through the news that we do have. And we do have a little bit of a section at the end for us to go through some hot takes that we have. So we'll have to defend that to each other. And if you have any hot takes of your own, or if you have any opinions on our hot takes, let us know in the comments once this is out on YouTube. But let's go ahead and just get right on into it. First thing coming up is kind of just a greater VCT topic to go over. The VCT, or all of the teams and regions, have qualified most of the teams that are going to the Toronto Masters event. We have 11 out of the 12 teams qualified, with Fnatic and Heretics being added on this last weekend, and the winner of Liquid and BBL being added on Friday, I think. So my question to you, Sticks, then is, with 11 of the 12 teams qualified and we know who they are, where do the Americas teams rank in those 12 teams that are going to be going to Toronto?
I want to say near the top of the group.
Mm-hmm.
That's just because I feel like I'm biased, but also I feel like as far as we've seen in international tournaments before,
Mm-hmm.
the Americas teams have overall done better than other regions. Obviously, I mean, last year, like Team Heretics, they went second in 2 grand finals. So
Right.
it's like, obviously Europe has good teams. Being Fnatic and Heretics are the 2 that I'm thinking of,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm stoked that they're both qualified because they're my 2 favorite teams in Europe.
Yeah.
Um, but it is one of those things that I feel like overall, I want to say I I have faith that the Americas teams are going to be closer to the top than, if not just midfield.
Yeah.
Obviously G2 is going to do phenomenal, but
Mm-hmm.
we'll see.
Yeah. No, I dig that. I think that that's a pretty valid assessment of the teams going into the event this year, or for the second Masters event, that is. I was trying, when I was thinking about Toronto, I was trying to think then, I believe it was it Shanghai last year that was the second Masters event that
Yeah,
everybody, because it was, what was it, Madrid and then Shanghai?
Masters Madrid, because that's where Sentinels won. Then
Yeah.
Shanghai. Who won Shanghai?
Gen G did, I think, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, because
right?
Gen G lost to Sentinels in Madrid, so they went back to
Yes.
back Masters finals.
Yes. And
Yeah.
then who won Champions last year? I can't remember.
EDG.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Honestly, Asia is looking strong.
yeah, and we could talk about that as well. But what I was trying to think about was, how did the Americas teams do going into and obviously there's a lot of changes between this season and last season. It's a little bit more spread out, thankfully. They have a little bit more time. Um, we talked about this last week with the EMEA teams, that it seems like they might have less of an edge, obviously, because of the time in between their finals ending and Masters Toronto beginning. Um, and all of that is just to say that it looks like this Masters event is primed for a North American, or an American team rather, because we have MIBR as well, an American
Yeah.
team to take it on the America stage. So I think that most people would probably put G2 at the top of that list. I mean, G2 was top one, if not top two, for just about everybody going into uh, Bangkok as well. And
Yeah.
so I don't think much has changed between Bangkok and Toronto for in most people's minds. And along with that, you only have better competition, I think, now with Sentinels is looking really strong. We'll talk about it in a minute, but with the patch changes, MIBR could be looking really strong as well. And
Yeah.
the other team that I think is probably either a top four, if not top two contender, is going to be Heretics coming in as well, because they've just looked completely dominant in their run through the EMEA playoffs as well. So yeah, I think that it's primed for a good showing from our America's teams. I'm stoked to see how well they do, and I think that there's a good chance that one of our three teams wins it, and I would not be surprised if all three of our teams place in the top half, if not even the top four. Which,
Yeah.
I mean,
I'd be surprised if they're not top half.
yeah. So maybe top four is a hot take. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't really been looking too much at what the community thinks about it, but obviously I'm going to be a little bit biased because it's my region too. Um, I don't know. We'll see. We'll have to play it by ear, or at the very least see what happens. So
Yeah.
since we're talking about the Americas teams, we should talk about we alluded to it last week, the roster move coming with NRG. We talked about how Mike's, the head coach, had stepped down. And so obviously they're going to need a new head coach. With that new head coach coming in, it was rumored that one of the other players was going to be leaving, and we weren't really sure who that was going to be as of last week. Since our episode that we filmed on Thursday, we do know for sure that FNS has officially announced his retirement, with Bonkar coming back and a tier 2 player, Scuba, taking the place of FNS. So, as FNS's number one hater, how excited are we for this?
I'm so excited. What's that Lizzo song? Like, it's about damn time.
Yeah, that's
Like,
it.
that's about where I'm at with this. Like,
Yeah.
I am thrilled. I am FNS number one hater. I was saying right at the beginning, I think right as we were going live, I
Hmm.
am embracing my haterism this year. And unfortunately for FNS, he has received most of it. Uh, the other part goes to F1 drivers, but that's besides the point. But FNS has received the majority of that, rightfully so, in my opinion.
Hmm.
But
Yeah. He's not, and I'll agree with you to some extent. He's not been good recently. I don't think that's a hot take at all to say. Like
no.
him, the only IGL who was doing worse than him, at the very least fragging wise, during stage one was Boostio. So,
I was gonna say.
yeah, him and Boostio were at the bottom there. They were fighting it out in the mud and trying to see who could be the worst. But I mean, we talked about it last week as well. FNS is as a streamer and as a content creator has just such an immense upside that if
Mhm.
the fire for him to compete isn't there anymore, and if he's falling behind or just not doing as well as he was doing before, then yeah, now is the time for him to take the bag and leave and just kind of see what happens. So yeah, I agree. I think that it will be good for the team to have him out and to not have to worry about what's going to happen, or not have to worry about him bottom fragging IGL. Like they'll actually
Yeah.
have something to work with. Hopefully, the question that this does bring up though now is you bring in a tier 2 player. This is from what I can see, this is his first time on a tier 1 organization. and with Scuba, and I don't think so. He was playing for Cubert before this.
Oh, okay.
The
Hubert
Sentinel
was doing well though.
Cubert's doing very well, yes, and they're looking really strong. The
Yeah.
problem being that you have this player who's coming in who, I mean, he's not going to be the IGL. I don't think that that would be
No.
what anybody would think. So I don't really know what to expect with the roles for this team. So Kaskuba was playing Sentinel or Initiator when he was playing with Cubert. You know, he has mostly Killjoy games on his like last however many games this is, but
Yeah.
he's Killjoy, Vice, and Omen, and I guess he could IGL, but I don't know. What do you think with this team? Do you think that it's time for Som to step up and
I was
figure out
gonna
how to
say
IGL?
I think Som is
Mm-hmm.
gonna be the IGL because I think I remember in a Sentinels vlog they were talking about like John QT was talking about how much easier it is to be an IGL when you're an initiator than when you're a Sentinel because like you're actually in the middle of everything, like you can see what's going on for yourself instead of relying on the minimap and stuff
Right.
and your team's comms. And so I feel like at the very least, he'll get the opportunity to IGL and like see how it goes in scrims and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I would like to see him IGL. I think he'd be good.
Yeah. Totally. I think that he has a presence in the team and he's established himself as a player that knows the game well. The only question would be if that's something that he wants to do.
Yeah.
Looking at VLR, it looks like they. I don't know if this is confirmed or if it's just what they think that Ethan is going to end up being the IGL,
Yeah.
which he was the IGL last season. So it's yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all kind of turns out in the end. I don't know that there's really a good decision. I think that no matter who you pick, it's going to have to be like it's going to be somebody who's going to have to prove themselves. That's just
Yeah.
how it's going to be. And so I'm very interested to see what this does for NRG's chances going into stage 2. Um Scuba's seems to be a great player. It just depends on how quickly he can get acclimated to the team, and they have the 2 months to kind of get ready. But how is that going to be enough time for them to actually get everybody worked in and get this team to a place that it's going to be a title contender or at the very least going to champs. So
Yeah. I will say I do think it's good how many tier 2 players they're bringing up this season.
yeah, no,
Because
that's a
Mata's a rookie too, right?
yes, yeah. Mata's a
Yeah.
rookie,
So I
Brock's a
mean,
rookie.
yeah. So I mean, on energy alone, you have 3 rookies
Yeah,
that were all in tier 2 last season, and then obviously you have 2G, all rookies,
yep,
and then Luke Show, a
yep,
rookie. Like you have all these players this season that are rookies, and I think it's fun to see, and I think it's been really good
yeah,
for the game.
totally. Yeah, it seems like we're at the, and we can, either we could talk about this now or we can kind of get into it, in its own segment. But it seems like this is the season where a lot of the old heads are starting to retire or they're
Yeah.
just done playing. And we're starting to make way for a lot of these, newer players who are hungry, who have proven themselves in the tier 2 scene, who are just, ready to go. And it seems like this is the kind of changing of the guard season, so to speak. When I was following League of Legends, there was kind of a similar period of time where, obviously you want the veteran presence, you want the guy who's going to know a lot of the situations about what's going on, but it is helpful to bring in those people, those guys who are hungry, who just want to, you know, prove themselves almost. You kind of get those higher highs with people like that. So yeah, I don't know. It's awesome to see. I think that we hopefully will see more of this because it seems to be working well so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you brought up, you look at Luke's show and just the monster that he is, and the things that he's doing. So I think stage two is going to be really exciting for that reason. A lot of guys getting their chances, a lot of guys with a lot of things to prove as well. Obviously, we can only have 8 teams going to playoffs, and from those 8, 4 of them going to champs. But I think
Yeah.
that it's going to be some pretty solid competition, and it's going to come down to some who did better more consistently with those champs points at the end of stage two. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Should be
It'll be
fun.
good.
Yeah. Speaking of changes, we should also mention we mentioned it at least last week that the new patch was going to be coming out for Toronto. It was rumored what was going to be on this patch. I believe, if I remember seeing it correctly, I don't think I made this up. Valorant had either from their official account had either tweeted or had made a short video just discussing that Tejo for sure is going to get nerfed. But not only did he get nerfed, he like got put in the ground.
Oh yeah.
The things that happened to Tejo is kind of insane because it seems, and this is what a lot of the community thinks as well, it seems that he's just not going to be usable for Toronto at all, which shakes
No,
up the
I don't
meta
think
for
so.
sure. Along with him, uh, there's going to obviously be, or not obviously, along with the changes to Tejo, there are going to be changes to Breach as well. He's going to be nerfed a little bit with Tejo, just because in conjunction with Tejo and with some of the other agents in the game, Breach is just kind of OP as well. For me, I mean, we knew that there was going to be a map change. I don't think that we knew that there was going to be a map change before the event, though. So what was
Oh, no, I
surprising to
didn't expect that.
yeah, what was surprising to me was that Fracture is getting sent out of the pool and Sunset is going to be brought into the pool. Um, which is awesome because I think that Sunset is a much more fun match to watch as a viewer at the very least
I
than
agree.
Fracture. And so in looking at all of these changes and we can get into the weeds with them as well. I'm going to keep it a buck. I didn't like read through each individual line of the patch notes because I don't know. I didn't. But
I
along,
have it up right now, so
yeah. So I don't know when you're looking at the patch notes like this, you're thinking about there's a Masters event coming up. We have like we talked about earlier. We know 11 of the 12 teams at least, but out of the teams who are going, who are do you have any clear winners and clear losers from these changes? What do you see?
poor Trent.
Yeah, yeah. I was
What
watching
is
some. I was
what's our
watching.
boy gonna do?
No, I know. He's I mean, look, thankfully Trent and G2 were very good before Tejo was out.
Yes. No,
Um
that's true. But they weren't winning before Tejo was out.
that's true. They did win 2 domestic titles with Tejo. So you're 100% right. I'm pretty sure and I would have to look it up to be 100% positive, but I'm like 99% sure that Trent only played Tejo during stage 1.
He
Um
did. He
yeah,
that was his only agent.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're 100% right. So I think G2 for sure is one of the teams that is going to be affected the most by this. Do you think that makes them a loser necessarily though from the or not a loser. That's pretty harsh because I mean they're G2. But
Yeah.
how much does this actually affect a team like G2 that kind of already has a lot of these protocols built in?
I think it'll affect them just in the sense that now they have to find another initiator that's going to work for their comps. They're going to
Sure.
have to find another initiator that's going to have the same payoff as Tejo does. Obviously, it's not going to be the exact same, but they're going to have to find one that works for what their protocols are. Because obviously, like with Tejo, the whole thing was, oh, you get the spike down, then you just stay off site, and then
Yeah.
the second you hear them tap the spike, then you use your salvos.
Mhm.
So it's one of those things now, like you don't have rechargeable salvos now,
Yep.
and you have to buy the second one.
Yeah.
Like that is huge. It's like Sky, which also I am salty that Sky doesn't have rechargeable flashes, but basically every other like signature ability is rechargeable.
Yeah.
But that's just me. That's the Sky main and me talking. But but it is one of those things that it's like it definitely makes you think about the util you're using.
Yeah,
Because you used to be able to use the salvos for entry and post plant, but now you can only use it for one or the other.
right. Yeah,
So
it's going to change the meta and change the game for sure going into Toronto. I don't think that we'll really know what it looks like until that first match because
yeah.
it's it's going to be anybody's guess as to how it's going to look because exactly like you said, you can't play these post planes the same way anymore. It's going to have to be a lot more active. You can't be very passive with it. Um, unless you're
I
somehow saving all of your util and for the post plant.
Yeah. I was gonna say I will say that the teams that have been really um using the Astra a lot,
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna still be they're gonna have the advantage, I want to say, going into Toronto because they'll have been using Astra for post plants the whole time.
Yeah,
So I
that's a good
think
point.
that those teams are gonna be fine. They'll have other alternatives because then you have Astra, you have Killjoy, like their util combo would be really good, and like it's one of those things that it'll just take a bit to figure out a workaround.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I think that it's a welcome change in the sense like as a viewer, I think that we're really going to enjoy watching these games because they're
Even as
going
a player.
well, hopefully as a player, but part of you have to think about it as well that they've just spent roughly the last 5 months, you know, really learning this new agent and really learning how he works and how he kind of fits into and building a lot of comps rather even around him. Um, but and so that could be frustrating as a player. At the same time, for a lot of the players, it's probably not going to change a whole lot. Unless you're a player like Trent who just only played Tejo. A
Yeah.
lot of the players who were playing Tejo can switch to other initiators, exactly like you said, or they can adjust the comps to go back to pre Tejo comps. Um, it'll be interesting to see. As a viewer, though, I think that it's going to be really exciting just to see what people find as the meta going into it. Slash, is there even going to be a meta? Because there is a strong chance that going into this event, it just it's whatever people think is the best, and that might be different for each team depending on where their strengths are. And so I really think that we'll hopefully be treated with a lot of not necessarily random picks, but a lot of quote unquote off meta picks that now are much better because this agent isn't in the game anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think it'll be really, really interesting to see what comps the different teams come up with.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I know that a lot of the fans are looking forward to it as well. We still have about 3 or 4 weeks before we see that first game, but we'll have to just kind of play it by ear. If I recall correctly, this patch is live right now for ranked. Is that correct?
I believe so. It's live today.
Okay.
Normally their patches come out on Wednesday.
Yeah. Perfect. So yeah, so we'll have to see how this feels as as from a ranked perspective at the very least. Uh,
Yeah.
can probably start to dictate a little bit about how it's going to move for the pro players. Hopefully,
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'm expecting to not see Tejo picked at all anymore in my ranked games.
yeah. No, I would.
Similar to how after ISO got nerfed after his massive buff, like
Yeah,
no one was picking him.
yeah. I think I think you're kind of trolling a little bit right now if you do pick somebody like Tejo. I think there are too many other initiators that are just going to do better in the game, or honestly, even Sentinels that can kind of have that post plant potential
Yeah.
that matches a little bit about what Tejo had. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. We'll have to kind of revisit this as we keep going and just see what happens.
Yeah.
So typically, this would be the part of the show where we would pivot and start talking about the teams that played this last week. Obviously, as we've mentioned, there was no VCT Americas this past week since we finished the week prior. So we are just in a holding pattern. So one of the other things, though, that we can talk about is just a little bit of the other Valorant that's happening in North America. So there are two other tournaments happening right now. The Game Changers tournament is going on at the moment, where as you would expect, Shopify Rebellion is undefeated, and they are kind of crushing right now. I'm not sure. Have you had much of a chance to watch the game changers in Americas right now?
I haven't, but I always tune in their international events.
Totally.
Those are
Yeah.
the ones I always make sure I pay attention to. So I am just expecting Shopify Rebellion to make it a three-peat and go for the back-to-back-to-back
Yes.
championship.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking forward to.
Even without Floor, I mean they're crushing right now. They're doing so
Oh yeah.
good.
I mean, and Dodonut, one of the players they picked up at the beginning of the season after Floor left, she
Hmm.
is actually insane. And I mean, because again, I've seen some of these players play like at the mixed event that I went to
Hmm.
last year, and even like Oxy, like he was like, dude, like Donut's insane.
Yeah.
And they made like a whole little voice clip out of it and kept playing it because it was hilarious. But it is one of the things. It's like, yeah, it's like those girls are so talented. Like
Yeah.
they're actually scary how good they are.
Yeah. They're pretty good. Um, they definitely do very well, and it's fun to watch. It's definitely
Yes.
fun to watch them go for it. So that actually is going to be finishing up the group stage here in a couple of days. It looks like in the next 2 days it'll be done with round 7 of Swiss stage. So we'll be moving on to the bracket stage after that's done. Shopify Rebellion obviously having that top spot locked in. So it'll be interesting to see how that ends up, and we should definitely talk about that a little bit more since it is North American Valorant too. Along with the game changers going on, we do also have the challengers event happening at the same time. So that is our tier 2 here in North America. So that's awesome to see as well. Um, if I let's see, I'm trying to look really quick. Yeah, okay. So this is the period as well where Shopify Rebellion Gold essentially has to fight to keep their ascended spot, their promoted spot. So
Yeah.
they have to win one game against a tier 2 organization, whoever ends up being in that spot. But this is another group that I haven't personally watched a ton of, but I did just want to bring up because while we're waiting for VCT Americas to come back and VCT in general to come back, we should be giving some love to the tier 2 scene and to these other scenes that aren't necessarily tier 1 but still have some really solid play going on.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not watching tier 2 or game changers, like you are missing out on some really good Valorant.
Yeah.
And it's even been talked about in like VCT how there are some comps that are being taken from tier 2 teams.
Yeah.
Like they'll pick it up like from those teams and all that, and it's just like, dang, like there's something to that or whatever. And so I think if you don't check out at least one match, you're
Hmm.
missing out. They're so fun to watch.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, along with this, it's important to remember as well that one of these teams will be in the VCT Americas next season as well, if not potentially two. Because depending
Shopify
on
Rebellion.
yeah, so because depending on how our ascended teams do, or promoted teams, I guess they're not called ascended teams,
Yeah.
but depending on how the promoted teams do, 2G and well, G2 is probably going to stay in, I suppose. But depending on how 2G does, they're probably going to end up back in challengers, and so we're going to have at least one team coming up from here. So it would be good to
What would
just.
it take for Furia to get relegated back down to challengers?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but because they are a part of the partner program, I don't believe they can actually be demoted.
Ah,
I
dang.
think, yeah, I think that they're gonna be up in challengers or in VCT for some time
VCT.
because they put in that money up front. But um,
That's wild.
to sidetrack
I mean,
really,
that's fair, but that's wild.
yeah, to sidetrack really quick as well, though. I mean, there is going to be a time coming up. I believe the head of esports, Leo, he did talk about there's potentially going to be a review, essentially. I think is probably the best thing to call it in 2026, 2027. So I believe that's when the initial partnership agreements end. And so a lot of these teams really should be pushing to prove that they deserve to stay up here, because
Yeah.
especially in Americas, you have a lot of these content creator teams. You've Shopify Rebellion, which is partly owned by Ludwig and Moist Critical. You have the Disguise team. You have other people trying to get in on these teams, and all of that is going to look way better to the Valorant, heads of Valorant, than a team like Furia, who, they're a South American team, sure, but they're really not bringing a whole lot of competition, and that's kind of what you want VCT to be, is the highest level of competition for your game.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it'll be
Is
interesting to
dis-
see.
is Disguised actually any good?
Uh, like I was saying, I haven't really watched a whole lot of the challengers,
Because
so
I
unfortunately,
was
I don't
gonna say, I
know.
thought I remember like the last time I saw something about them, like they weren't that good.
Yeah, I don't think they are that good. If I'm looking at it correctly, anyways, they're not even in the Challengers Americas like
They're
system.
not.
Yeah.
No. But
So
yeah, and that's what I was looking at right now, which I'm like, I didn't realize that, like, I knew Shopify Rebellion were doing well.
yeah,
I didn't realize that they're already like in the semifinals. Like they're doing well.
yeah, yeah. So it's something to definitely keep an eye on, because it's it's going to be important eventually. So we might as well start looking at it now, and just kind of staying up to date with everything that is happening with these teams. And we might see a lot of these players come into VCT teams across all the regions, depending on how well they do. So,
Yeah, I think that'd be really neat to see.
yeah. So, anyways, that's our call out. Follow the tier 2 scene. Keep an eye on them. Don't do what we do, and not watch them. But yeah, we'll probably try to watch some of them this coming week, so we can
Yeah,
talk a
for
little bit
sure.
more about it next week. Yeah. So kind of as we near the end of the show here, there's not a ton more to talk about. Like we said, upcoming games is June 7th is when Masters Toronto starts. Um, should hopefully be a good time zone for us, because it's going to be on the East Coast. So thankful for that.
No 1 a.m. games this year.
I know. Yeah. I didn't
That
even.
was awful.
I don't think I watched a single one of them. Well, I definitely didn't watch a single one of them live. And I
I
would
did.
I would try to watch the VODs of them, because I wanted to see what was happening, but I did not want to. I would end up spoiling it for myself beforehand, because I just couldn't get through it, and I just wanted to see who was winning.
No, I think it was Bangkok last year that I was watching them live. But that's also when I was working at Starbucks and I was an opener, so it was like I was up late anyways.
Yeah, you kind of had to be ready to go.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, so we'll be excited for that. I'm stoked for Toronto to start. I'm ready for it to be here. In the meantime, though, like we said at the top of the show, the goal of this show is to, have you guys calling in eventually, and kind of maybe having a hot take, or just wanting to talk more about Valorant and kind of get nerdy about it. And so, because we don't have any callers at this point, we figured now would be a good time for us to maybe share what some of the hot takes could be that you could be bringing onto the show. So we've come up with one or two hot takes that we can share, and we'll talk about it with each other. If you have any opinions on the hot takes that we're bringing up, let us know in the comments what you think about it, so that we can talk to you about it there as well. You can also join our Discord, because then we can talk to you about it on Discord as well. But I will throw it over to you if you have a hot take ready to go that you want to throw out here.
So I started thinking about this once we started talking about like game changers and stuff.
Yeah.
I think that the current roster of Shopify Rebellion Gold is tier 1 worthy. I think they deserve to
Wow.
be in tier 1.
Is that just because Furia exists and you think that they're better than
No.
Furia?
Well, okay, I do think they're better than Furia, but that's not why.
Right.
I genuinely think that they are like the most talented team. I mean, last year, obviously they had floor last year, so
Hmm.
it's a little bit different. But even this season, like they're undefeated. That is not an easy thing to do when you see all of these other teams that they're playing against.
Yeah.
Like these teams are so good,
Yeah.
and you still see these girls having no issue like defeating them every single time.
Hmm.
But I genuinely think that they deserve a spot in tier 1, because I think that they would put up a fight. They would at least win a couple matches. Like, they're
Yeah.
not going to do extraordinarily well the first season, I don't think, but I think they would at the very least win a couple matches, which is
Yeah.
more than we can say for the currently ascended team.
Yes.
Actually,
That's
they won one match. My bad. Sorry.
yes. 2G
Speaking about
2G did
Furia
win one
again.
match. Um yeah, I think you're I mean I do think that's a hot take because I think that I think it would be a long road for them to get to VCT.
100%.
If I remember correctly, like they essentially have to win out in game changers, plus then they have to win out in their promotion, and then on top of that, they have to then win out the rest of challengers in order to make it to be ascended, or
Yeah.
promoted rather.
I think Game Changers is no problem.
Right.
Um, I mean, last year they beat MIBR Game Changers team,
Mm-hmm.
which they were a powerhouse, and they beat them 2-0 and made them look like children that had been given computer access. Like, it was bad.
Yeah,
So I'm like, I genuinely think they're just such a strong team, and I think I'm giving huge props to Mel, their IGL. I
for
think
sure.
she is phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that she's a great IGL. Just to play devil's advocate, because I think I do agree with you to an extent, and I think that if they were in tier one, I think that they would do very well and arguably better than some of the teams that we currently have in tier one. But just to play devil's advocate, what I would say is we've seen this a few times with some of these ascended teams where they come into the league and the game is a little bit different, honestly, right? In tier two or in anything that's really not VCT, it's not as protocoled, and some of it can get a bit scrappy, right? I was watching a challengers game the other day, and it's a lot about the gunfighting, and less, and it's getting more to the point where it is more about, how do we work together, how do we make sure that we're all on the same page. But there is this, it is kind of almost more who can shoot better, which obviously Valorant as a game, like, as a tactical
At the end
shooter.
of the day, it's an FPS game.
Exactly. Yeah. So you do have this point where obviously, yes, you do need to shoot better, but part of it is that, you need to shoot better. You also need to be the better, use better util, have better strategies, be more on top of the calling. And I think that thankfully for Shopify Rebellion, they do have uh this core that has been together for so long now that they really, they almost seem unbeatable. They seem like they're always on the same page, and that just speaks volumes about where they can go. It's just a matter of like if they were in tier one or if they were put into that position, would they actually be able to like get up to the level and the speed that the game is at? Slash, is it really that different from what they're playing right now? That would just you would just have to see if that happened.
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as the challengers and all that goes, I think that yes, I agree with you. That's a lot. It's very scrappy and everything, but I think that's why Shopify Rebellion is doing so well. Because if you watch Game Changers, it's still scrappy,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot less so. It is a lot more protocoled, I want to say.
Yeah,
Because this is literally their job.
totally.
Like it is one of those things that they have a lot of experience is kind of where I'm coming from with that, where I'm like, they've gone to international tournaments before,
Yeah,
they've played LAN so many times, like they're used to that kind of setting. And so I
yeah,
feel like that would give them a huge leg up as opposed to all these other challengers teams that don't normally play uh you know LAN or anything. Like they don't normally play these teams that are super protocoled. Like they don't
yeah,
play these teams that do have set plays. And so I feel like that's one of the strengths that Shopify Rebellion does have, which is again why they're doing so well in specifically challengers, but
yeah.
obviously game changers too.
No, 100%. I think it's a hot take, but I don't think that it's so hot that it's like impossible that it could happen. I totally I think that in the next couple of years at the very least, if there's going to be a game changers team that makes the jump into VCT, it's going to be them. And
It's gonna be Shopify Rebellion.
I don't think
Or
that
G2 goes in.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, they could make it into the EMEA
Yeah.
VCT. which it would be sick. It would be sick if they both did, right? We have
Yeah,
we have one game changers team and two of the bigger leagues that we have. That'd be sick. I think that'd be awesome. So I'm on board with that.
yeah.
Cool. I think I was trying to think of what my hot take would be, if I'm being completely honest. My hot take is that Tejo isn't as dead as everybody thinks that he is. The what's the Mark Twain quote? My death was greatly exaggerated, or something
Oh
like
yeah.
that. That's what Tejo is going to be like in Toronto. He's going to come out, and here's why I think this. Tejo, he's going to be different, and he's going to be much much worse. My thing with that is pro teams have such an aversion to change most of the time that I don't think that some of these teams will be able to change fast enough or feel comfortable changing fast enough that they'll actually be able to make the change to get off of Tejo, right? I
So they'll
think
just force it to work.
exactly. I think we saw this with Sky when she was nerfed at the beginning of last season because there was only like a couple of weeks, if I remember correctly, between the patch coming out and the start of the season, where she really wasn't usable, but people were like, well, we've trained all off season with this, so we have to use her.
Yeah.
And so people kind of forced her with that. We saw the same thing with Viper as well, where Viper got a lot of nerfs to her in the middle of last season, where the snake bite she lost a snake bite, and I believe that her smoke was worse in some
Yeah,
ways.
her poison didn't last as long.
Yeah. And so I think that you have things like this where pro teams have in the past established that they don't like the change, and so it almost seems like they won't be making the changes. I think that there's like the Chinese teams, for example, and the Americas teams have had so much time off that they would be foolish to not have backup plans ready to go and new comps ready to go. But I think
Mhm.
that if you're an EMEA team, you haven't been using Tejo a ton already, but on the maps that you have been, you're probably going to keep using him. If you're a Pacific team, you have like 3 weeks roughly to switch it up. Along with that, you have to travel to Toronto. So all of that's a very long-winded way of saying that I think at least half the teams are probably going to still keep using and forcing Tejo, and it's not going to look great, but it's going to look, it's going to be as good as they can get with such short
Right.
time. Um, I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily crazy, but I think that it is maybe a hot take in the sense that everybody thinks that Tejo is in the ground, and I think that we'll find out that he's not really in the ground as much as people think.
I I would say that I agree with your point that the VCT teams are change adverse.
Yes.
However, I do think Tejo is going to be dead for a while until people figure out how to play him properly again.
Yeah, and it may
Similar to
even
ISO.
yeah, exactly. Similar to ISO and similar to Viper in a way where she had to kind of change her role where it was less post planty and more kind of like flood retake when she
Yeah.
was on defense. And so I
And
think
I mean, even like sorry, I didn't mean to
you're
cut you
fine.
off, but like we see her played on split pretty much every time. Like she's standard for that comp now.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things that you still see her a lot even though she's nerfed.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I think that yeah, you will see Tejo on maybe I'm trying to think of what the maps would be.
I
Fracture
think
would have been the
Pearl.
Fracture would have been the one map I for sure would have said that he's still probably on just because, an
Yeah.
ult with that kind of distance gives you a lot of room to work with. But Pearl's a good call out. He might
I
still be
think
there on Pearl.
I think his salvos and his ult were really good for Pearl, and I think
Yeah.
personally when I play Tejo on Pearl, I love using his drone for B long. Like
Yeah.
that is super useful to me because I feel like it has so much more longevity than the Sova drone.
Yeah, it totally does.
So just gives you a little bit extra.
Yeah. And hopefully what we'll see is, it was very obvious that Tejo needed nerfs. Like, I'm not arguing that at
Yes.
all. I think that everybody in the game, everybody who's played the game, and everybody who's watching VCT or any pro or even amateur games can see that Tejo is just way too overpowered. And so I think that what you'll find is hopefully in the off season or maybe even the next patch, right? They're working on kind of tweaking, Tejo, Sky, just all the initiators kind of to build them into a place where they're not overpowered, but they still can offer a lot of value with the kit that they have, or even if a few
Yes.
tweaks that they have. Just something that doesn't let them take over the meta in the same way that Tejo did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is always the process we go through with a new agent where they do take over the meta for a bit and then they get their nerf and then everything chills out and then they get a little bit of a buff.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you're Yoru or Neon.
Yeah, then you stay dog water for a while, and then eventually you just kind of get the god buff, and then you stay amazing forever, and then you get
And
nerfed
then
a
you get
little
the
bit.
tiniest little nerf.
Yes, and then they say we fixed it when Neon is still sliding around killing everybody.
Yeah, well, I was thinking Yoru. Yoru
That's
is
true.
insane. He just got the tiny little nerf of his ult doesn't last as long anymore.
Yeah.
But no, Neon is still so OP. I hate playing against Neons.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
headshot instantly every time. It's so bad.
Supposedly she's nerfed, but I wouldn't know. As a Neon main, though, I'm not complaining, so I shouldn't really say too much.
I tried playing Neon the other day.
Yeah.
It did not go well. I think I went like 0-7 in Swift play.
Yeah.
It was not good.
It's either a snowball or you're just waiting for the game to be over. There's really no in between with Neon.
I don't know who I thought I was locking her in.
You got to
It's
try
a
it.
different person.
You got to
It's a
send it
different
every once in a
six.
while. Oh man. Well, those are some of the hot takes. Did you have any more hot takes that you wanted to bring up?
No, I think the biggest one that I will always defend is Shopify in tier 1.
Yeah. Shout it from the rooftops, and then
Honestly,
once it happens,
any of those players in general in tier 1, I would be defending with my entire life.
yeah,
Like any of the Shopify players, because we've seen how well Floor did, so I'm just like, hey,
it would be
America
sick.
teams.
Yeah, it would be sick to see some more game changers players at the very least get into tier 1. I think that
Yeah,
players like Mel and Dodo Nut and some of these other,
and Jelly. I think Jelly deserves to be
she's
on
on
one of the Brazilian
MIBR, right?
teams. Yeah, she deserves to be on one of the Brazilian teams for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that if, these players keep on popping off like they are, I think that they could make a good transition into a tier 1 system, or tier 1 team rather, that's, maybe struggling
Yeah.
a little bit and just need somebody who can show
Give
up
them
and pop
something
off.
fresh.
Yeah, exactly.
Something fresh and just someone with good mechanics is what it is.
Totally. Yeah. I completely agree. Well, that will do it for our show, though, tonight. If you have hot takes that you want to bring up and talk about with some nerds of Valorant, you can go ahead and join our Discord. We'll be live again next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Pacific time, so join us then to talk about Valorant. Next week, maybe we might do a little bit of gameplay as well, where we duo and either play ranked or some Swift plays and things like that. And if you want to be a part of that, you can also join our Discord, and we'll maybe play with some of the viewers as well. But the Discord link is going to be down there in the description, along with our YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all the good stuff. I finally got episodes 2 and 3 out today on YouTube, so go check those out. Give them a
Was
like.
episode 2 not already out?
No, I had forgotten to. Well, technically it was out. I take that back. The recorded, the live version of it had been out, so I just edited it and put it back out as the recorded version. So
Okay.
that's all that happened there. But yes, we're getting those out, and then we have some shorts coming out within this week. So keep an eye on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok for those. And if you like what you see, share it with your friends. Any shout outs to end the show here tonight, Sticks?
Send button.
They need to start paying you if you're going to keep saying that.
I know. Sentinels, hit me up. Also, though, shout out Shopify Rebellion Gold. Honestly, like
Absolutely.
They're doing incredible. I wish nothing but the best for them.
Yeah, no, they're killing it right now. Yeah, shout out to them.
And Keyboard Academy, actually.
They're also doing very well. I wonder if they bought the Sun bundle.
I would hope so.
We'll have to watch their game to find out.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to do it for us here tonight. Thanks again for watching. If you made it all the way to this point in the episode, we appreciate you. We're going to just try to be consistent, and hopefully we'll be talking with you guys on some future episodes here. But in the meantime, I'm Lance, that's Sticks, and this was Plant the Spike. We'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.